Everything begins with imagination. The world you see, the people you encounter, the events that unfold, all of it flows from the inner activity of your consciousness. Nothing enters your life uninvited, and nothing remains unless it is being sustained by the unseen energy of your attention. So when you desire something, when you feel a deep yearning for change, for love, for abundance, for a new experience, know this: that very desire is the evidence that what you seek is already seeking you. You are not separate from it. You are not chasing after something distant. You are being drawn, called, magnetized to the reflection of who you truly are within. You must act from the premise that it is already yours. Do not act like someone waiting. Waiting keeps you in the vibration of lack. Instead, dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. How would you walk if you knew the answer was already guaranteed? How would you speak? How would you breathe? How would you carry yourself in the world if the very thing you long for were not out there, but already yours in consciousness? You must become it in imagination, so it may express through the world of form. You are not here to earn your dreams. You are here to align with them, to awaken to the truth that your inner world casts the shape of your outer one. It is not striving that brings manifestation, it is assumption. Assume that what you seek has found you. Assume that what you desire is already yours, and then act in accordance with that assumption, not as performance, but as truth. There is no need to manipulate or convince the world. There is no need to chase. The moment you feel yourself to be what you desire, the moment you accept it, in the stillness of your being, the bridge of incidents begins to unfold. Life reorganizes itself around your inner conviction. This is not hope. This is knowing. Feel now the presence of your desire fulfilled. Let it saturate your senses. Let it become your dominant mood. Let it color your conversations, shape your posture, guide your expectations. You are not preparing to receive. You are receiving now. You are not moving toward it. It is moving toward you, because you are in harmony with it. What you are in consciousness must reflect in experience. This is the law. No need to beg, no need to explain. You need only to be still and know that it is done in the invisible and is making its way into the visible through you. To act like what you seek is seeking you is not pretense. It is the most honest thing you can do. Because when a desire is born within you, it is life itself whispering a new name for you to wear. So wear it, walk in it, embody it with the ease of someone who knows that what is meant for them is already reaching out, already making a way, already preparing a place in this world through the unseen corridors of faith. Desire is not random, it is not an accident, nor is it an illusion to be dismissed. The moment you feel a sincere longing within you, you are not being teased by the universe. You are being invited into alignment with something that already exists for you in the unseen. Desire is not a sign of absence, it is the echo of presence. It is life's way of calling you to recognize what is already yours in imagination. The thing you want, the relationship you dream of, the freedom you crave, the abundance you wish to experience. All of it exists now as a reality in the unseen realm of your consciousness. The desire itself is the messenger, and its very presence within your awareness is evidence that its fulfillment is not only possible, but already seeking you. When you feel a deep, repetitive desire, understand that this is not coming from your surface mind alone. It arises from the depths of consciousness. You cannot feel what you are not already connected to. You cannot long for something that has no spiritual correspondence within your being. The moment a desire enters, it reveals a state of consciousness you are capable of entering. You were never meant to strive for things as if they were far away from you. You were never meant to strive for things as if they were far away from you. You were meant to awaken to the truth that your desires are extensions of your own potential, calling you into a deeper realization of self. Every desire is a seed, and like a seed, it contains the complete pattern of its fulfillment. You don't need to force it to grow. You only need to believe in its reality and nourish it with your attention. When you treat your desires as if they are sacred clues rather than distant goals, you stop seeing them as something to chase, and you begin to see them as something to receive. This changes everything. You no longer ask, will this happen for me? But rather, am I willing to assume that it already has? The very nature of desire implies possibility. You don't desire things that have no place in your world. You are not a beggar knocking on a locked door, you are the door. And what you desire is already on its way the moment you open yourself inwardly to receive it. To desire is to be chosen. What you seek is not foreign. It is familiar. What you seek is seeking you, because it belongs to your inner being. It matches your vibration. It is already part of your divine inheritance. The error comes when people feel desire and interpret it through the lens of lack. They believe desire means they do not yet have it. So they start from a position of being separate from the thing they want. But this very separation is the illusion that keeps the desire from manifesting. The moment you feel a desire, you must reverse this lie. You must realize the desire is mine because the fulfillment is mine. I feel this now because I am ready to receive it. I do not desire it because it's missing. I desire it because it is near. It is knocking at the door of my consciousness, waiting for me to welcome it in through assumption. The outer world is a shadow cast by the inner world. When you desire something deeply and persist in the assumption that it is already yours, the world must conform. It cannot help but shape itself around your inner state. The desire was never meant to lead you on a journey of seeking. It was meant to awaken you to the version of yourself who already lives in the experience of its fulfillment. You must walk by faith, not by sight. Not faith in something external to deliver it to you, but faith in the unseen laws of consciousness that guarantee your desire is proof of its reality. People often suppress their desires or rationalize them away, thinking they are too much, too grand, too impossible. But this is only because they have not yet realized the creative power of consciousness. If the desire lives within you, then it already has a home. You are not a passive observer in this life. You are the author. You are the dreamer of the dream. And what you dream sincerely and persistently in imagination must eventually become tangible. Desire is divine. It is how consciousness reveals new dimensions of itself. It is not something to be feared or mistrusted. It is to be honored. Your desires are sacred pathways. They reveal who you are becoming, not by reaching, but by remembering, not by chasing, but by being. And the moment you recognize that the desire itself is evidence that what you want is already moving toward you, the struggle disappears. You rest. You dwell in the feeling of already having. You embody the joy before the facts. You feel rich before the money appears. You feel loved before the partner shows up. You feel free before the world rearranges itself. This is not imagination in the childish sense. This is creation in its purest form. There is a version of you that already possesses everything you desire. And when desire stirs within, it is not a random longing. It is the self calling itself home. You do not need permission to claim what is yours in consciousness. You only need to accept it inwardly and walk in the knowing that what you seek has already been assigned to you. Let the feeling of your desire fulfilled become the air you breathe. Let it shape your self-talk, your reactions, your expectations. Assume that the desire has chosen you as much as you have chosen it, and act accordingly. The mere presence of the desire is your confirmation that you are ready to receive. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now, in the silence of assumption. To live from the end is to bring the unseen into the seen by way of your inner acceptance. It means no longer waiting, no longer hoping, no longer standing on the outside of your own dream. It means moving in thought and feeling from the place where your desire is already fulfilled, and allowing that inner state to guide every action, every assumption, and every vibration that you carry. There is nothing more powerful than living from the end. It is not just a technique, it is a transformation of identity. When you stop living toward your goal and begin living from the reality of it being already true, you step into the creative seat of your life. So many people live in the gap between what they want and what they currently see. They are always striving, always chasing, always trying to make it happen. But this striving is the very thing that postpones the manifestation. As long as you are walking toward the desire with the belief that it is separate from you, the bridge never collapses. But the moment you dwell in the assumption that it is done, you begin to walk as the person who already has it. You think like that person. You feel like that person. You breathe, speak, and move in that frequency. And because reality reflects your state of consciousness, life begins to mirror back to you this new identity. Living from the end is not pretending, it's not faking it until something changes. It is being so absorbed in the feeling of the wish fulfilled that you lose interest in the appearance of lack. You're no longer waiting for evidence. You become the evidence. You are no longer desperate for signs, you are the sign. Everything in your inner world is aligned with the fulfillment, and so the outer must follow. That is the law. There is no exception to it. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest what you are conscious of being. So to live from the end is to assume the consciousness of already being the one who has received. Ask yourself what it feels like to be that version of you. Not what it will feel like someday, but what it feels like now in imagination. What does your day look like when the desire is fulfilled? What kind of thoughts are natural to you? What do you expect to happen? How do you interact with others? What do you believe about yourself and the world? You must rehearse this inner state until it feels so familiar, so natural, that you forget you ever lived without it. So it is not repetition that brings results, but the depth of feeling you invest in the experience. When you live from the end, you bypass the need to figure out the how. You stop interfering with the process. You allow the unseen forces to arrange the path. You no longer chase results because you are dwelling in completion. There's a restfulness, a confidence, a quiet certainty that rises when you assume that it is already yours. Your actions become inspired, not forced. Your movement becomes effortless, not strained. Stop struggling against the current and begin flowing with the current of your own assumption. Every day becomes a stage where you play out the inner reality of your fulfilled desire. You respond to life not as a seeker, but as someone who has already found. You let your thoughts match your end. You let your words reflect the state you've claimed. You catch yourself when you fall back into old habits of doubt or waiting, and gently return to the truth. It is done. It was done the moment I accepted it within. The world may not yet show it, but my inner world already contains it, and that is enough. It will be outpictured in time, but the reality of it exists now, in consciousness. Even in moments when nothing seems to be changing, you stay loyal to the end. You remain faithful to the state you've entered. You persist, not with force, but with love. You revisit the feeling of already having. You trust that what you are being inwardly must externalize, because it has no choice. Reality is not separate from you, it is your mirror. If the mirror still shows the past, it is only because the reflection is still catching up with the new cause you've planted. But it must arrive, it is law. The effect must match the cause, and your cause is the state from which you live. Living from the end requires imagination, not daydreaming, but deliberate assumption. You cannot live from the end casually. You must occupy that place in mind and emotion with full commitment. You must take the throne of your own consciousness and dwell in the finished state. This is not work in the traditional sense. It is the stillness of deep knowing, the relaxation of someone who trusts the process. The world no longer intimidates you because you know it is only echoing your inner atmosphere. When you live from the end, you are not thrown by appearances. You understand that the delay is not denial. You understand that circumstances are not indicators of truth, but reflections of past assumptions. You walk in the world, but your inner gaze remains fixed on your fulfilled desire. You hold to the end in consciousness, and everything begins to move toward it, drawn by the gravity of your unwavering state. The right people show up, the right opportunities unfold, the right events align, but they are not creating the fulfillment. They are expressions of it. You must become emotionally identified with the outcome. You must feel it as real before it becomes real to the senses. You cannot wait for evidence to feel fulfilled. You must feel fulfilled to generate the evidence. This is the reversal of ordinary thinking. This is the power of consciousness. The world changes not when you take massive outer action, but when you shift into the version of yourself who no longer needs to strive, because that version already has, already is, already knows. So instead of asking when, you begin to ask, who am I being now? Instead of measuring progress by what's outside of you, you measure it by how deeply and consistently you remain in the end. You become the living proof of your desire realized. And the more natural it becomes within you, the faster it crystallizes around you. Time becomes irrelevant because fulfillment is not somewhere in the future, it is now, in the silence of your inner world. You wake up to the truth that you're not becoming, you are remembering. You are not building the dream, you are awakening to it. Assumption is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between thought and form, between desire and experience. It is not mere hope or wishful thinking. Assumption is claiming a reality within yourself so completely that the outer world has no choice but to comply. When you assume something to be true, you accept it into your consciousness without question, without resistance, and without the need for physical evidence. In the strings of your consciousness, without requiring of physical evidence, you live in the inner conviction that what you have imagined is already so, and by the law of consciousness, that assumption hardens into fact. The world responds not to what you want, but to what you assume to be true. If you assume that you are unloved, even if love is offered to you, you will find a way to distort or reject it. If you assume you are successful, even if evidence appears to the contrary, life begins to bend in your favor. Assumption is not about forcing or fating. It is about entering a state of mind so completely that it becomes your dwelling place. You don't visit it occasionally. You live in it. You identify with it. You let it define you. Assumption does not require struggle. It only requires persistence. What you assume regularly becomes your self-concept. And your self-concept is the creative force behind everything you experience. The outer world cannot exceed or contradict the limits of your inner beliefs. So when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are changing not the world, but yourself. And as you change, the world reflects that change back to you, faithfully and consistently. Everything begins in the unseen. There is no experience that does not first pass through the inner world of thought, belief, and feeling. To assume something is to give it life within. It is to nourish it with attention, to energize it with belief, to saturate it with feeling. It is not mechanical, it is alive. The assumption you hold becomes the vibration you emit, and that vibration draws its likeness into form. Many people make the mistake of waiting to see something before they believe it, but the law does not work that way. It is belief that precedes seeing. It is assumption that creates the condition. You must believe you are healed before the healing shows. You must assume you are wealthy before the money appears. You must feel that you are loved before the person arrives. The world mirrors your state, not your effort, not your need, not your pleading, but your assumed identity. To assume is to accept. And once accepted inwardly, it must manifest outwardly. It cannot not manifest, because the world is not external to you. It is your assumption, made visible through a chain of unfolding events. And you do not need to concern yourself with the how. That is not your domain. Your only responsibility is the assumption itself. You trust that once the seed is planted, the harvest will follow. You do not dig up the seed to check its progress. You remain faithful. You water it with repetition and emotion. You protect it from doubt and fear. And you live as though the fruit is inevitable, because in truth, it already exists in another dimension of your being. You are always assuming something. You cannot live without assumptions. The question is not whether you're assuming, but whether you're assuming deliberately. Are you claiming what you want, or are you reinforcing what you don't want through unconscious belief? If you look closely at your life, you will see the pattern. Every recurring condition, every repeated outcome, traces back to a persistent assumption held within. Change the assumption, and the pattern must change with it. It cannot remain the same unless you remain the same. Assumption also frees you from the illusion of effort. You stop trying to change the world through external force and begin to shift it from within. You stop reacting and begin creating. You move from victimhood to authorship. No longer waiting for circumstances to grant you permission to feel fulfilled. You choose to feel fulfilled now, in spite of appearances. And in doing so, you open the door for circumstances to mirror that fulfillment. There is a stillness in assumption, a quiet power. It does not shout. It does not grasp. It rests in knowing. It walks in peace. It smiles at doubt because it knows the unseen is more real than the seen. When you live in assumption, you are not swayed by delays or setbacks. You understand they are only the remnants of old beliefs, fading away as the new assumption takes root. You remain anchored in your vision, not because you are stubborn, but because you know that consciousness is the only reality. When assumption becomes natural, manifestation becomes inevitable. The thing you once tried to chase begins to chase you. The dream you longed for begins to take shape around you, not because you worked harder, but because you assumed differently. You stepped into the vibration of already having, already being, already living the life you once believed was out of reach. And now it feels normal, natural, expected. This is how the law works. Not through struggle, but through alignment. Not through wishing, but through assumption. You must feel the reality of what you want so vividly within that the world has no choice but to conform. You cannot wait for proof. You must be the proof. You cannot wait for the world to agree. You must agree with yourself first. Let every desire become an assumption. Let every dream be claimed inwardly with finality. Let the feeling of already being it become the place you operate from. And when doubt creeps in, return to the state. Return to the knowing. Return to the truth that you are not creating something from nothing. You are selecting it from within the infinite storehouse of possibility and bringing it into view through the lens of assumption. Be still and know it is done. These words are not merely poetic. They are instructions for transformation. In the silence of your inner being lies the creative force of the universe. In that stillness where striving ends and knowing begins, you touch the realm where all things are already accomplished. You don't need to push, pull, manipulate, or struggle, and you only need to surrender to the reality that what you have imagined is already yours in consciousness, and therefore it must become visible in time. The need to chase or prove dissolves. You enter a state of calm assurance that the seed of your desire has already taken root, and the fruit must follow. Stillness is not passivity, it is not inaction. It is the most powerful state you can enter, because it is grounded in certainty. When you are still, you cease reacting to appearances. You no longer let the world dictate your state. You no longer allow the current of outer conditions to move you away from the truth you have claimed within. You remain unmoved, steady, unshaken, not because nothing is happening, but because you understand everything is happening just beneath the surface of the senses. In stillness, you connect with the eternal reality where all possibilities exist now, not in the future. You begin to feel the presence of what you once believed was far away. To know it is done is not to pretend. It is to feel with such inner conviction that you no longer require outer validation. You become fulfilled before the evidence arrives. You begin to walk, talk, think, and feel as if the desire is already a fact. This inner knowing is what draws the desire into form. It is not need that manifests, it is not desperation, it is the calm, quiet confidence of someone who already possesses the thing inwardly and rests in that position. When you act from that place, your energy shifts, your responses change, your world adjusts. Many people think they must do more, try harder, apply greater effort to manifest what they want. But this kind of doing often comes from a place of lack. It says, I must work for it because I do not yet have it. But when you are still, when you enter the deep knowing that it is already done, your actions are no longer about trying to make it happen. They become natural extensions of the inner state of fulfillment. You move with grace. You take inspired action because it feels aligned, not because you are afraid the dream won't come true. There is no force, only flow. There is no worry, only faith. Stillness allows you to step back and observe the movement of life without interfering with it. You watch things unfold without anxiety. You trust the process. You trust that the unseen forces are aligning the right people, the right moments, the right conditions to bring your assumption into physical experience. You don't need to micromanage reality. You don't need to question every step. You return to stillness again and again, affirming in the quiet of your heart, it is done. It was done the moment I accepted it. It was done the moment I claimed it in consciousness. What I feel inwardly must appear outwardly, for the outer world is nothing more than the reflection of the inner one. There is a mystery to stillness, but it is not confusion, it is majesty. When you become still, you begin to hear the deeper voice of your being. You begin to receive impressions, nudges, insights that guide you effortlessly. You begin to act from inspiration instead of reaction. This is not laziness, it is alignment. The world teaches you to hustle, to fight, to chase, but consciousness teaches you to rest in knowing, to move from a state of being. In that beingness, you are already whole, you are already complete. You do not need the desire to complete you. It is an expression of your fullness. To know it is done is to release the outcome, not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of giving it over to the divine laws that govern all manifestation. You stop holding on with tight fists and start trusting with open hands. You stop begging and start receiving. You stop fearing that it won't happen and begin feeling that it already has. This release is not surrender to fate. It is surrender to the higher wisdom within you that knows exactly how to bring it about. When you practice stillness, you detach from the illusions of delay and difficulty. You no longer measure progress by the calendar or by appearances. You live in a different rhythm, the rhythm of faith, the rhythm of knowing. In this rhythm, everything unfolds perfectly, even when it seems like nothing is happening. Stillness reveals that manifestation is not about speed, it is about state. And when you remain in the right state long enough, the outer conditions will catch up to your inner knowing. You can be surrounded by contradiction and yet remain still. You can witness the absence of your desire and yet dwell in its presence. This is not delusion, it is mastery. It is the recognition that reality begins in imagination, that what you assume to be true in stillness will crystallize in form. The noise of the world may try to distract you. The circumstances may appear unchanged, but you hold your inner stance. You persist in the knowing. You return to stillness over and over until it becomes your home. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Stillness no longer feels like a pause, it becomes your power. It becomes the seat of creation. From it, you speak things into being. From it, you impress your desires into the fabric of reality. From it, you watch the world shift and rearrange itself to match what you have claimed within. You become less concerned with what others think, less reactive to the facts, and more devoted to your inner experience. You begin to realize that true power is not loud, it is silent. It is not busy, it is present. And it is from this presence, this stillness, that everything flows. Consciousness is always attracting its own reflection. What you are conscious of being determines what you experience in the outer world. There is no escape from this truth. Your inner state is not a private passive experience. It is an active force, a magnet drawing into your life all things that match its frequency. Every thought you dwell upon, every feeling you nurture, every assumption you consistently return to becomes part of the energetic field you carry, and this field organizes reality around you. You are not at the mercy of life. Life responds faithfully to your internal identity. This is why you must take seriously the state you occupy, because it is not neutral, it is generative. If you carry the consciousness of being unloved, unwanted, unworthy, then that very state will summon experiences that confirm those beliefs. Not because the world is cruel, but because it must reflect what you are most consistently being. It cannot bring to you what you are not embodying in consciousness. The law is precise. You draw not what you think in passing, but what you become in feeling. So if you desire change, you must become the change first. You must occupy the inner state of your desired reality, not sporadically, not only when you meditate or visualize, but as a living attitude of being. You must learn to wear the feeling of the wish fulfilled like a second skin. Not merely thinking about it, but saturating your imagination with it, until it feels more real than what your senses report. You are not waiting for a shift, you are the shift. To embody a new state of being, you must be willing to let go of the identity tied to the old reality. You cannot hold on to the consciousness of lack and expect abundance. You cannot dwell in the feeling of being alone and expect companionship to arrive. You cannot nurture thoughts of illness while asking for health. This is not about denial. It's about dominion. You must claim your new state and live from it as if it were the only truth. The outer world will catch up because it has no choice. It is not the cause, it is the mirror. Many try to manipulate the reflection while ignoring the source. They focus on changing their circumstances without ever shifting the self. They work harder, try different strategies, chase opportunities, and still nothing changes. Why? Because the state of consciousness remains the same. You cannot outrun your vibration. You cannot outperform your beliefs. The world always meets you at your level of assumption. What you are in consciousness, you meet in the world. It is easy to forget this, especially when appearances suggest the opposite. But you must not let the senses deceive you. The moment you allow appearances to determine your state, you become a servant to the outer world. But the moment you take dominion over your state, regardless of what appears, you begin to bend reality from the inside. It is not about fixing what's out there, it's about embodying something different in here. When you persist in the inner assumption of your desired state, the world begins to move. People, events, opportunities, and unexpected changes begin to align with your new identity, not because you chase them, but because they are drawn to the energy you now hold. You have shifted your magnetic field. You have altered your frequency. You are no longer attracting from the old state. You have become a match for something new. This is not effortful. It is inevitable. It is the natural result of inner alignment. There is no manipulation involved. You are not tricking the universe or forcing outcomes. You are harmonizing with what already exists as a possibility. The version of life you want is already real in another dimension of your consciousness. By embodying the version of you who already has it, you collapse the space between where you are and where you want to be. It comes not from striving, but from alignment. You assume the feeling, and the world echoes that assumption. This is why it is so important to choose your state deliberately. You are not at the mercy of random thoughts or emotions. You have the power to direct your attention, and where your attention goes, your energy flows. You can decide right now to move into the consciousness of already having, already being, already knowing that what you desire is yours. And the moment you do, reality begins to shift, not because something magical happened, but because you changed your point of attraction. You don't need to convince anyone else. You don't need to justify your new state. You don't even need evidence to back it up. All you need is the willingness to believe that your inner world is the source of your outer one. The more you dwell in that truth, the more natural it becomes. You begin to expect differently, think differently, feel differently, and as a result, the world shows up differently. There is nothing more powerful than someone who lives in the knowing of their own chosen state. They are unmoved by contradiction. They are undisturbed by delays. They are centered in the feeling of the end result. This certainty is magnetic. It draws the unseen into form, not through force, but through resonance. Everything that matches your inner world must find you. It must reflect back the self you have chosen to be. Your only job is to remain loyal to your desired state, to wake up every day and return to that feeling, to allow that feeling to guide your words, your reactions, your choices. You are not doing this to get something. You are doing this because it is who you now are. And because it is who you are, the world will meet you there. Not by accident, but by law. Not by chance, but by design. You are not attracting randomly. You are attracting with precision. By becoming the embodiment of your own desire.